The council chamber of the Zyrith Dominion glowed with cold blue light, polished stone arches rising above a floor etched with conquest marks from centuries past. Admiral Korath Veldar stood at the center of the circle, his mandibles clattering as he barked out his claim. "Humans," he sneered, drawing the word as though it were a bad taste. "A fireside tale told to frighten hatchlings. Traitors whisper of them to excuse their failures. Ghosts. Nothing more." Around him, senior strategists exchanged uneasy glances. The myths had persisted for centuries, stories of a species born on a death world, able to survive extremes that killed others, innovators who turned desperation into weapons. Some said humans had driven entire empires into ruin before vanishing into the dark. A scholar general shifted in his seat. "Admiral, caution is wise. If even a fraction of the tales hold truth." Koratha's mandibles clicked shut with a snap. "Truth is forged by action, not whispers. I will claim the uncharted expanse at the edge of this spiral arm. If humans are real, they will bow. If they are not, history will record my name as the one who erased the last superstition." He spread his forearms wide, the gesture both proclamation and challenge. "I will bring back proof that myths bleed." The council yielded, some in fear of his ambition, others secretly eager to see arrogance punished. Within a cycle, 200 Dominion warships aligned in formation, their drive flares lighting the void as they surged toward the expanse. Captain Elara Voss watched them come. From the observation deck of the Resolute, her reflection hovered faintly in the glass, dark hair pulled back, sharp eyes tracking the river of enemy signatures. The Dominion fleet blazed across her tactical board like a storm front rolling into still skies. She folded her arms. Calm, deliberate. She had trained for this moment since her first command posting. Her executive officer, Lieutenant Merrick, stood at her side. His jaw was tight. 200 ships. We've 30, including support craft. Outnumbered nearly 7 to 1. Elara didn't look away from the display. "We don't fight like them." The bridge crew listened in silence. They all knew the stakes. Humanity had remained hidden for centuries, cultivating the myth, letting whispers grow stronger while colonies masked their presence with misdirection and false wreckage. Now the myth had drawn predators, and the predators would learn what waited in the dark. Merrick lowered his voice. "Once we strike, there's no turning back. The galaxy will know." "Yes." Elara allowed herself the barest smile. "And they'll never forget." On the Dominion flagship, Terror of Vryn, Admiral Korath strode across the command dais, robes of authority trailing. His sensor chief bent low. "Admiral, first systems reached. Unclaimed colonies, abandoned. We detect derelict stations, ancient wrecks. Primitive, by the look of them." Koratha's mandibles rattled in satisfaction. "So this is the lair of our great monsters? Ruins and dust? Forward elements, spread out and map every system. Strip anything of value. Leave nothing but silence." Laughter rippled across the bridge crew. Moments later, a transmission cut through the noise, distorted, static-laced, a code none of their encryption suites recognized. Then a flash, one of their scout corvettes bloomed into wreckage, shredded in an instant. The laughter died. Korath leaned forward, for eyes narrowing. "Explain." The sensor chief's frill trembled. "Admiral, it came from nowhere. No drive signature, no energy spike. The ship was simply erased." Koratha's voice hardened. "Find the attacker." Silence stretched before the chief spoke again, voice unsteady. "Nothing, Admiral. The void is empty." On the Resolute, Elara lowered her hand. "One strike. Enough to make them wonder?" Merrick exhaled, tension easing slightly. "They'll hunt us now. That's the point." She turned to her crew, voice carrying steady authority. "For centuries they've laughed at the myth of humanity. They think we're shadows. Tonight we stop hiding." A murmur spread through the bridge, not of fear but of resolve. The young sensor officer Kaido clenched his fists. "They outnumber us, Captain. But they bleed, don't they?" Elara's gaze sharpened. "Everything bleeds. Hours later, Korath paced his command chamber, claws clicking against the alloy floor. Reports trickled in, communications relays severed, fuel convoys ambushed, destroyers lured into minefields where no mines should exist. Always, the humans vanished into nothing before counterattack. His adjutant ventured. "Admiral, if these are indeed humans, the legends claim they." "Legends?" Korath roared, slamming his lower fists onto the table. "I will not wage war against bedtime stories. They are vermin, nothing more. And vermin can be crushed." Still, unease stirred in the ranks. In the war room of the Resolute, Alara stood over a holographic projection. Red swarms of Dominion vessels fanned across the sector. 30 blue markers pulsed at the edge, faint compared to the overwhelming tide. "Phase 1, she said. "Draw them in. Cut their lines. Make them chase shadows." Her officers leaned closer, determination etched into their faces. Merrick nodded. "And when they think they've cornered us?" Alara's smile was thin as a knife. "Then we show them what myths are made of." Koratha's fleet closed around a desolate system, the ruins of a station orbiting a dead star. His ships formed a tightening noose. At the heart of the trap, 30 human vessels shimmered into visibility, breaking cloak. Sleek, angular, built for speed and guile rather than brute force, they drifted silently as if daring him to strike. Korath rose from his command throne, laughter booming across the bridge. "So this is the Great Terror? 30 ships standing against 200? His officers forced uneasy chuckles. On the other side of the void, Alara's crew braced for her command. The Dominion formation loomed larger with every passing second, overwhelming in scale. Yet on her face, there was no fear, only cold clarity. She raised her hand. "Begin Phase 1. The Resolute's engines flared to life, and the myth took its first breath. The first exchange came like lightning. From 200 Dominion hulls, lances of plasma and hyper-accelerated projectiles blazed toward the cluster of 30 Terran vessels. The void lit in violent arcs, each shot enough to tear moons apart. Dominion officers cheered as their weapons struck home. But the human ships were no longer there. They scattered with impossible precision, engines cutting and reigniting in bursts, each vessel slipping between firing solutions with maneuvers the Dominion considered suicidal. Cloaking fields re-engaged, silhouettes faded, and the storm of fire slammed into empty void. Admiral Koratha's mandibles ground together. "Cowards!" he hissed. "They flee rather than stand." On the bridge of the Resolute, Alara's voice was calm. "Execute the pattern. Don't give them rhythm. Make them guess." Her fleet dissolved into chaos on the tactical board, but every movement was deliberate. Human ships blinked in and out of detection range, laying gravitational mines, slicing communications with pulse jammers, and striking at the Dominion's exposed flanks. The first Dominion cruiser erupted in a chain of explosions, its reactor venting white fire. Then another. Lieutenant Merrick leaned forward. "That's 2 down. They're turning on each other, firing blind." Alara allowed herself the smallest nod. "Let them choke on confusion." Hours dragged into a war of nerves. Each Dominion squadron that split off to chase a human contact returned battered, or didn't return at all. Supplied barges vanished, found later as drifting wrecks. Sensor feeds filled with phantom echoes, false fleets conjured by human electronic warfare. On the terror of Vyarwayanen, Korath loomed over the tactical display, his patience unraveling. "Report." His sensor chief's frill quivered. "Admiral, we have lost 17 ships confirmed. Another 12 crippled. The enemy numbers remain unchanged." They what?" The officer swallowed hard. "They know our moves before we make them." Koratha's mandibles clicked in fury. "No. They are insects hiding in shadows. They cannot fight us directly, so they scurry." He raised his voice, daring the myth itself to hear. "Enough games! Push forward. Full assault. Grind them into dust." His fleet reformed, lines of warships pressing deeper into the system. On the Resolute, a junior officer's hands shook as they relayed updates. They're converging, Captain. If they close the noose, then we slip the noose. Elara cut in. She spoke quietly, but every word carried weight. They believe numbers give them certainty. We show them numbers mean nothing. The young officer faltered. But what if we fail? Elara met his eyes. Then the myth dies with us. But if we succeed, she gestured to the stars beyond. It lives forever. And so will humanity. Resolve steadied the officer's hands. Merrick leaned closer. Their arrogance blinds them. They're burning fuel too fast, stretching supply lines. They're walking into the trap. Elara studied the holographic map. Dominion ships were herding her fleet toward the corona of the nearby dying star. She smiled, not with mirth but with precision. Exactly where we want them. The battle shifted to the star's edge. Solar storms flared, radiation spikes howled across sensors. Dominion ships hesitated at the turbulent boundary, their shields straining. Elara's fleet dove straight in. Inside the corona, light twisted in violent ribbons. Heat-resistant plating and adaptive shielding, decades of preparation, allowed human vessels to vanish inside the inferno. Dominion captains balked at following, but Korath roared over the fleet net. Forward! Do not let superstition paralyze you. If they hide in fire, burn them out. The Dominion pursued, though their hulls groaned in protest. From within the boiling brilliance, human ships struck like knives. Swarm drones detached in waves, darting through the star's turbulence, slamming into Dominion hulls with precision strikes. Plasma batteries tore at weakened shields already taxed by solar radiation. One by one, Dominion vessels ruptured, torn apart by forces they could neither track nor counter. The star itself seemed to fight for humanity, its eruptions masking every maneuver. On the Resolute, Marek's voice cut through the chaos. Admiral's flagship is closing. They're pushing into the heart of the corona. Then let him see us clearly, Elara replied. For the first time, the Resolute revealed itself. It cut from the star's glare, hull glowing with heat, a phantom born of fire. Weapons discharged in disciplined bursts, tearing through a Dominion destroyer before it could adjust shields. Elara's voice was level. Target their command relays. Leave the Admiral blind. The Dominion flagship staggered as its escorts burned around it. Still, Korath held his ground, his mandibles grinding in stubborn defiance. On his bridge, alarms shrieked. Officers shouted warnings of collapsing shields, failing systems. His adjutant begged, Admiral, we must retreat! These tactics, this is madness! Korath struck him aside with a clawed hand. Madness? No. My legacy. I will kill this phantom myself. He glared at the star beyond, voice agrowl. If humans are gods, then let me be the one who slays them. On the Resolute, Elara watched the Dominion flagship lurch closer. Her face betrayed nothing, though her crew felt the rising weight of the moment. They still don't understand, she murmured. Merrick frowned. Understand what? That myths don't die, Elara said. Her eyes never left the tactical feed. They endure. And every shot we fire writes a new line of theirs. The crew absorbed her words in silence, each officer realizing they were not merely fighting for survival. They were shaping legend. The star rumbled behind them, casting the battlefield in searing light as the Dominion flagship prepared its final charge. The Dominion flagship pressed through the star's burning veil, scarred hull glowing red where heat and enemy fire had bitten deep. Whole wings of escorts lay shattered behind it, but Admiral Korath would not break. On the Resolute, the crew stood silent, watching the massive silhouette emerge from the corona. Lieutenant Merrick whispered, He's still coming. Elara Voss's tone was steady. Because pride is a heavier chain than steel. She leaned over the display, eyes narrowing. The Dominion fleet was collapsing, broken squadrons fleeing, crippled vessels scattering, but the flagship held on, its commander forcing it forward. If Korath lived, the Dominion would not retreat. He had to be ended. The Dominion ship launched a storm of fire. Plasma lances carved through the star's brilliance, lighting the void with spears of molten color. Shockwaves rattled the Resolute. "Shields at 40%! Kaido shouted from the sensor pit. Elara didn't flinch. "Hold course. Bring us close." Merrick turned sharply. "Close? Captain, his guns will tear us apart at range." "That's what he expects," she said. Her gaze never wavered. "So we deny him range." On the terror of Vyryn, Korath stood tall amid the chaos. His bridge was choked with smoke, crews scrambling to maintain control. Wounded officers staggered back to their stations. The adjutant who had begged for retreat now whispered hoarsely, "Admiral, they fight like no species I've seen. They bleed us without hesitation." Koratha's mandibles clacked in fury. "Then they are no gods, only predators. And predators die when faced with greater teeth." He leaned over his command chair, voice carrying through the fleetnet. "All ships still loyal, form on me. We crush this phantom here, or we do not return at all." The Resolute plunged forward, weaving through incoming fire with brutal precision. Dominion cannons tracked, but human thrusters fired in unpredictable bursts, flipping the ship into maneuvers no Dominion captain dared attempt. "Range closing!" Merrick barked. 200 kilometers! Elara's hand rested on the console. "Arm the drone corps!" The room fell silent. Officers looked up sharply. The drone corps, an experimental warhead housing thousands of swarm drones bound into one explosive lattice. Detonation inside a capital ship would shred it from within. Marek's voice was low. "If we miss the insertion window, we're the ones torn apart." Elara's eyes met his. "Then we don't miss." The flagship loomed, a mountain of alloy and fire. Inside the Dominion vessel, alarms blared as human ships continued to strike from unexpected angles. But Koratha's focus never left the Resolute. "There!" he roared. "Their leader shows herself. Forward batteries, concentrate fire!" Weapons thundered. Energy washed across the Resolute's shields, draining them to a sliver. Kaido's voice cracked. "Shields failing!" Elara gripped the console. "Steady. Helm, vector us directly into his path." The helmsman hesitated only a breath, then obeyed. The Resolute screamed toward the Dominion flagship, every alarm wailing, every hull plate straining. The collision never came. At the last instant, the Resolute rolled under the flagship's forward cannons, engines flaring at full burn. A hatch irised open beneath its hull, launching the drone core like a spear into the enemy's underbelly. The device latched on, burrowing into weakened armor. Elara gave the order. "Detonate!" Inside the terror of Vyryn, the floor heaved. Officers were hurled from their stations as a blinding flash erupted deep within the ship. Thousands of microdrones spilled from the warhead, chewing through corridors, splitting systems apart, detonating munitions as they spread. Korath clung to his command chair, mandibles rattling. "Report! Core breach! Hull compromise!" The officer's words were cut off as the deck split beneath him. From the Resolute, the crew watched as the Dominion flagship convulsed, fire venting from its seams, decks crumbling inward. Elara's voice was quiet. "It's over." But Korath was not finished. The Dominion Admiral staggered toward the forward viewport, smoke coiling around him. His once proud uniform was scorched, armor plates shattered. He stared into the void where the Resolute hovered, battered but unbroken. He rasped into the fleetnet, voice carried across every surviving Dominion channel. "You are not gods, you are fragile flesh. I will not bow to—" The words ended in silence as his ship's core tore itself apart. The flagship bloomed into a brilliant sphere of light, fragments scattering like ashes across the corona. The Dominion line broke. Ships turned and fled, ignoring chain of command, abandoning formations. Broadcasts rippled through the void, warnings, frantic cries, fragmented voices repeating a single truth. "The humans are real." On the Resolute, the bridge fell into exhausted quiet. Dozens of enemy ships still drifted across the system, but none pressed the attack. The battle was done. Lieutenant Merrick sank into his chair, face pale. "They'll never doubt again. The whole galaxy will hear of this." Kaido whispered, all mixing with fear. We've revealed ourselves. Elara straightened, shoulders heavy with the weight of what came next. She looked at her crew, each one scarred by exhaustion yet burning with pride. Yes, she said softly. We're no longer shadows. Her eyes returned to the stars, voice gaining strength. From this day forward, we are not a myth. We are a warning. The crew rose to their feet, not in celebration but in solemn understanding. They had carried humanity from secrecy into legend, and legends bore responsibility. Far away, in the fractured remnants of the Dominion fleet, terrified captains sent encrypted bursts across the galactic networks. Warnings spread faster than fire. They called themselves human. They hid in the dark. They bleed us. They endure. Do not provoke them. The myth had woken, and the galaxy trembled. Final on the Resolute, Elara Vaz stood alone at the viewport, stars stretching endless before her. The void seemed different now, as though it too recognized what had been unleashed. Her voice was almost a whisper. They wanted to erase a story. She closed her eyes, steady and resolute. But tonight we gave it teeth.